everyone. Thank you for joining me again. This is episode 3 of season 6 of The Chi. So let's get into it. There was a lot going on in this episode. It was actually a really fun episode, as well as an episode that was very telling for the rest of the season. So we kind of start off the episode where Emmett and Tiff are actually together. They're together in the old apartment that they used to live in together. And Emmett has invited Tiff over to come get some of her things that are left over in the apartment. As y'all know, Emmett and Keisha have now bought a home and they are moving to the west side of Chicago from the south side. And Tiff is coming over to get the last little bit of her stuff. And her and Emmett started talking and reminiscing about their past and also how much they've both grown and where they are now. It was actually a really beautiful moment because we're reminded that Emmett and Tiff used to be a couple, but that also used to just be friends. And we go over sort of their past and how they fixed the apartment up, because we know when they moved in there it was a dump, and they really did a nice renovation on very little money. And while they were both trying to grow, and now in their respective areas, Tiff is doing well with her her business. Emma's doing well with Smokies. They're both in relationships that they love being in, and they're genuinely in happy places in their life. And so it's just a really nice come together moment. And as Tiff is kind of leaving out, Emmett actually says like, hey, why don't we go grab some lunch? Because it's just a reminder of the fact that they're really in the good place. They're getting along. They share a child together. There's been ups and downs in their relationship as co-parents and as a couple. And now that they're just back being co-parents, it was a really dope moment to see. So we go from, Emmett meeting up with Tiff to Emmett connecting with Keisha at the new house. The new house is very beautiful. Keisha's done a really beautiful job of decorating. She's, kilted in all the areas of the home. You almost feel like they've been living there for a while. The house is beautifully decorated, and they have that beautiful painting that they had from the old apartment now in the new house. And you could just tell Keisha's loving where they're living in the space and how they're vibing. They're actually getting ready to do a housewarming party. And so they're going over details of it. And, Emmett wants to christen their new place and get all lovey-dovey. I really love how they're connecting them is really, really grown, and their approach towards life, and how they're starting to be on the same page. And we can see that throughout this episode. A lot of things that happen in this episode, we're starting to test where Keisha and Emmett's belief in each other is. Outside of them being a couple, we know that they were a couple in high school and then friends, but we're starting to see like where their value system lies. And so much goes on through this episode when they actually have the housewarming. They invite some high school friends, and there's a really interesting moment where you can tell that they just had more growth than the people around them. Keisha invites a friend that she hasn't talked to in years, and Emmett invites his like homeboy that he hasn't seen since high school graduation. And you can tell that, throughout the years of college, through Emmett growing with Smokies and finding his own way, they've just really grown apart from their friends. Keisha's friend is asking her questions about if Emmett's still cheating on her, and girl, let me come over and do this. And Keisha she's not there anymore mentally. She's not in that high school mentality. And Emmett's friend is on some, forget these women, they ain't real. You just got to sleep around with a bunch of different people. And Emmett's not there anymore. He's actually a family man. He's trying to, expand with his business and grow as a person. And they just feel like they really have outgrown some of the people in their life. And you can't necessarily take everybody with you. But they have invited everybody to this housewarming. So y'all, it goes down at Smokies. And what's going on is that there's a customer that has walked in, and he's talking to the new young lady that Papa has a crush on. You remember, she's 19 and Papa is 17 and a half. And he is behind her at the counter. A customer rushes in because he said that he had an order that he called in, and he was told that it would be ready by the time he came in, and it wasn't. And it seems to be like a catering order, but there was some mix up with how long the order would take, or if the kitchen, made it on time. And the man starts to get frustrated and starts to yell at her and get disrespectful with her. And Papa steps in and really handles it. One of the things I love about the Papa character is the fact that he has just like this level of maturity that's just different from his friends at his age. He handles it respectfully. He handles it the way you would professionally, but he also forces that man to apologize to the coworker and just says like, hey, we don't mind fixing your order. It's our bad. We'll, do what we need to do, but I do need you to apologize to her. The man tries to give her like a like a half-witted apology, and Papa's like, nah, you gotta apologize for real, and then I'll throw in something extra for your troubles. And he gets him to actually do it. The girl is super impressed. But again, she's 19. And like I stated previously, I don't really know what the dynamic is with this storyline, if they're trying to push this older girl on him. She's in college. I'm just thinking to myself, it's weird. She essentially later on in the episode kind of asked him out, even though she in the last episode was saying she was trying to stay far away because he was like in high school. And she essentially kind of asked him to hang out later, which really implies a date, even though she tries to label it something else. But what reminds you again about this weird R. Kelly-esque situation is that Papa has told her that he needs to ask his parents if he could stay out that late. And that's just a reminder that, girl, he's too young for you. I don't even know, again, where the Chi is going with this dynamic of this girl that is asking Papa out, with this college student that's asking Papa out in high school. And it's in that moment that he says he has to ask his parents that it clicks for her. Oh, he's younger than me. Maybe I need to not pursue this. And she sort of gets off of the idea of it. So I don't know where they're going with this dynamic. I end up feeling, I'm feeling like it's going to end up with some type of romantic relationship that probably should not be. And I don't know what the narrative is that we're pushing when we're saying it might be okay for a guy to have this experience with the older girl, but if a man was doing this, it would be some sort of weirdness. Now, while we at Smokey's, Shad is sitting in there eating. Again, who is paying for this man food? He ain't got no job. But I think what it is maybe they're just serving him for free, knowing that he doesn't have a job. I don't know what. At this point, as much as Shad is at Smokey's, can he get a job at Smokey's? I don't understand. He's there every day eating. And if he is paying for food, where he getting the money from? Because he ain't got no job. And if he could get to Smokey's every day, can he get to Smokey's to work? I'm not really sure what they're going to do with his storyline as far as the job situation, although I think it's hinted at the fact that he's going to possibly get back into some illegal work. I don't know. I hope not. I really liked his character, and I wanted to see his character thrive outside of his prison stint, because we're reminded in this episode that he was in prison for, I think, 20 years. So he was in prison for a really long time. He got arrested very young and has spent the majority of his adult life there. And he's obviously been really good about trying to stay away from, the darker forces on the outside and stay out of street stuff. And he's even encouraged Bakari to do the same, even though he ended up getting wrapped up with Douda. So I really hope they find some way to not put him back into that situation, but it feels like they're going to just sort of put him back into that situation based on his economic situation. I said situation 4 times. Anyway, Shad is there eating for free, I guess. And in rolls the dude that Emmett kind of got encouraged by to change his life a little bit. It was that Hotep dude that they had online from last year who was telling Emmett that he needed to preserve himself. So Emmett stopped having sex. He stopped having, sex while he tried to figure out where he was going in his life and try to restrain himself from cheating and not doing the wrong thing. And that kind of helps him to focus on his life. And remember, he got more into his grind and got more into his personal life. And he really did abstain. Abstaining helped him, I think, to really get his life together. So he ends up seeing Shad sitting down. Shad wants to ask him a question because he watches him and he's inspired by him. The dude doesn't really want to talk. He's kind of fake about the energy, but there's no other seats in the place. So they start having a conversation, and Shad breaks down to him how he's living with his girlfriend, or they moved in together rather, but he's not working and it makes him feel uncomfortable. The guy says, yeah, you really can't feel comfortable when you're not working and bringing no money in, but maybe these women need to start taking care of us, and we've been doing it for so long, and as long as you laying it down. He starts giving him all this bad, Hotep level, weird, internet, bad relationship manosphere advice. It's just ridiculous. But either way, Shad is kind of listening to what he's saying, and he realizes that it's time to go to Emmett and Keisha's housewarming. He finds out that Emmett has invited the Hotep dude to go as well, and they actually decide to link up and take Shad's girlfriend's car there because neither one of them got a car. So we at the housewarming, and it is popping. So everybody's dancing, everybody's having a good time. Food is everywhere, spread out. Keisha has actually cooked a lot of the food. The food is banging. Everybody's loving it, and people are congregating in different areas of the house. And we see as Emmett's mom, Jada, is over getting some food that she starts talking to the realtor about that sold them the home. And he's a nice looking guy. She starts asking him all these personal questions about realty and then asking him if he's single. And we're like, what's going on here? And we realize quickly that she has actually been doing this throughout the entire party. And we watch her do this again with another person where she's asking these men about their lives and asking them if they're single because she is asking different guys or auditioning different guys for a possibility of trying to hook them up with Tracy. As we know in the last episode, Tracy's trying to get away from Douda. She really is on this singles path and she's not necessarily interested in dating anybody at the moment and maybe just getting to know herself more or staying to herself to figure out her life. But Jada feels like all she really needs is somebody and that's all it takes. So she's asking these random dudes and it's just like, girl, what are you doing? Like, officially, even if you're trying to help your friend meet somebody new, why are you just going to random men throughout the party that you don't know anything about that may not even be good quality men for your friend just to try to hook them up with somebody? It's definitely a weird dynamic, and she continues to do it out the episode with no sense of self-awareness about why you're not listening to what your friend wants and why you're trying to hook her up with random men that you know nothing about. So over in the kitchen area, we see that more people are moving around the house, and we focus kind of in on a conversation happening between Kevin and Keisha's mom and Dre, her wife, and they're going over, just the niceness of the home, the fact that they're on the west side, things like that. The same thing parents will always discuss. And it's in that moment that we kind of realize that their mom, Kevin and Keisha's mother, is feeling an empty nester energy. Keisha was already a little older and moved out the house, but I think they're shocked at the fact that Kevin moved out so quickly. And she's starting to really feel like, okay, my kids are really gone. Lene, who they adopted last year, is still in the home, but it's just starting to feel like these kids are moving really fast. And Lene's not that far from graduating herself. So, she's just starting to really feel a sense of loneliness and a loss of purpose because she's been a mother so long to these kids. Kevin actually walks into the house and he sees her. He's over at the table with Lene and they sort of wave at her, but they don't walk over there. And she's kind of upset about the fact that they didn't walk over and speak. And Dre has to remind her like, hey, they're older. They're just with their friend group. They're not trying to ignore you or ignore us. It's just that they're, you get to a point where you're just feeling your friends more. You're not necessarily trying to hang out with your parents, even if you're all at the same event. And then Keisha walks in and her mom is talking to her a little bit. And, there starts to be this little external battle between them, I guess, because the mother's sort of feeling, again, not like she has anything that the kids are asking her for or that she feels like she can give. She feels like her kids are moving away from her. And she doesn't feel as useful. And so she sort of gets into it about them living all the way on the west side, which is far from where they are on the south side. And she alludes to the fact that the house might be too much. And Keisha doesn't really want to hear that. She feels like it's negative talk. And she starts to like get into it with her mom, and then she kind of walks out the kitchen. And her mother, again, feels offended because she really is just hurt that she felt like if Keisha was going to buy her first home, she would have liked for her to have been a part of that situation and have talked with her and said, hey, mom, I'm thinking about doing this. And it happened so fast in transaction. I don't think the mom is aware of how quickly it happened for Keisha, but that she always thought those were things that she would do with her children, that they would come to her and ask her. Now, also about the food table, because we didn't go into each section of this home at this point, at least on the first level. We see Lene and Kevin and Maisha, and they're getting food from over at the little buffet section of the table. And they start having a conversation about the house being nice and feeling great for, Emmett and Keisha, and then moving up and moving on, and Kevin moving out. And then they have a conversation about Lene and Bakari, because earlier in the episode, we see that Bakari's brother, Jamal, who just recently came back in her life, is basically telling her he doesn't want her ending up with somebody like him. And the guy that she's currently seeing, Bakari, works for Douda. And although he's just like a lookout guy right now for Douda, it never stays that way. He doesn't want her ending up with a street dude. He doesn't want her ending up with a street guy. And so he's letting her know, like, look, there's better out there for you. I don't want you to get caught up in that. I've seen it happen with girls and women that get caught up with these guys in the street, and it never ends well. They end up in jail, or they end up dead. They end up doing time for this guy. Like, I don't want that for you. And she tells him she doesn't want that for herself, and she doesn't, Bakari's not like that. And he tells her, like, nobody feels like that. And she even mentions, like, he's just a lookout. And he said it never stays that way. At some point, Duda's going to ask him to do more than be a lookout, and he's going to have to make a decision. And it's not going to be a good decision that he's going to have to make. And you're going to end up with a person that could get you in trouble with your own future. So she's sort of having that conversation, but Maisha is kind of reiterating some of the things that Jamal was saying to Lene, as is Kevin. They're reminding her that, yeah, Bakari has recently made some choices that you didn't expect, and it could lead you into a situation. She's getting a little defensive, but she's also listening to them, and they're telling her, like, look, he got into a fight at the concert, and there was they had to break up the concert that Maisha had like last year because Bakari got into something and there was a gun involved. So she tries to remind them that Bakari's not like that. And they're like, look, everybody feel like that, but the dude is currently hooked up with this guy. You don't know what's going to happen. And you can tell that things start churning in Lene's head about whether or not she should really stick it out with Bakari, or whether or not she's making a wrong decision by kicking it with this dude. Now, of course, as luck would have it, as soon as they're talking about Bakari and Douda, here come Douda's behind, walking right into the spot. And when I tell you the party was at a mid-freeze, his energy, the way he just comes into places and how people are not messing with this man really shows and changes the entire frequency of the space. When I tell you everybody was just on some, here he is. He shows up, people are on freeze. I think the music even stopped. And he walks up, Emmett greets him, and he starts to hand Emmett this box with the gift. And of course, as he's handing Emmett the box, Emmett is like, cool, I love gifts, whatever. And when I tell you everybody was just staring at them, it was just very much like a play, because people are just so uncomfortable in Douda's presence. And they're like, why is he here? And Emmett's going to open up the gift, but then Douda stops him and says no. And Emmett's like, okay, well, I'll just open it later. And Douda's like, no, you need to open it now. But he's like, you just told me not to open it in front of everybody. He's like, well, you need to open it now because I gave this to you. And he's like, oh, why isn't the music playing? Why are y'all all staring at us? It was just very uncomfortable. And so he essentially forces Emmett to open up the gift now, but he needs him to do it in private. So they go to Emmett's bedroom. And when Emmett opens the gift, it is a gun. And Douda explains to him that, he has a family now. He has a business now. He needs to be more responsible when it comes to the safety of his family and taking care of home. And protection will let you do that. And Emmett's like, look, I don't carry a gun. I'm not that guy. I'm not that person to be having a weapon. He's like, well, you need to think about that when you're going to Smokies, when you're coming home, when you have your family at home. You don't want nothing happening or going bad and realizing you could have did something. And Emmett's just really not comfortable with the gun, but Douda starts telling him that he needs to be a man and a boss would carry a gun. It's just a weird dynamic. And it also just makes you sad because you know that Emmett is going down this path of listening to this man who he believes is this like very thorough businessman. He knows he's obviously got like a gangsterish energy to him, but Emmett also looks up to him in the fact that Douda gets stuff done and he has money and he has prominence. Although it's a dark cloud of prominence, he is like listening to him and he's like, okay, cool. So he kind of takes the gun and puts it into like the drawer in the bedroom, and they sort of move on out of the bedroom. But in that moment, when he goes into the bedroom with Douda, we see Emmett's actual father, Darnell, uncomfortable with that situation. And we notice that Darnell is not really feeling what has occurred with that situation of Douda going in there. He doesn't like Douda. He doesn't like the influence that Douda is having. And we kind of talked about that on the last episode. And it actually comes to a head because Darnell is kind of peeping where they are, and he ends up coming up to Emmett later on, pretending like he's going to the bathroom. And actually, Emmett leads him to the bathroom, but then when Emmett walks away, Darnell goes into the bedroom, and he finds the gun. Back in the kitchen, we have a weird interaction that occurs, and I won't say it's so much weird. I would say it's insightful and a reminder of like a dark part of the Chi from the past. In the kitchen is Keisha, Rob, and Nuck. And we know Nuck is Douda's right-hand man. And one of the things that kind of occurs is that, Nuck is smoking and he is in the kitchen and Keisha's not feeling that. She asked Nuck to put it out, all of that kind of stuff. Now, when I was watching this scene, I really was like, oh, you know, it's weird for him to be disrespectful in her home. Now she's got to say that, and, she might be afraid of him because of Duda. What we actually find out, or I guess we're supposed to be reminded of, is that Keisha and Nuck used to date. And Rob is sitting in the kitchen and, he's witnessing what's going on, but he tells Nuck, like, look, I'm gonna go outside and smoke with you. Like, don't smoke in her house. Like, she's asking you not to do that, just go smoke. I thought Keisha was scared of Nuck. We kind of find out she isn't afraid of Nuck and that her and Nuck used to be a couple. I don't remember that from the prior season. So drop down in the comments if you do remember this. But I never knew that they dated. And as we all know, one of the biggest storylines in The Chi from the previous seasons was that Keisha was kidnapped and essayed by a crazy track coach she had. She ran track in high school and she was kidnapped by her coach and he essayed her while he had her in captivity. And prior to the day that she was kidnapped, she was actually at a bus stop in the city and she had like an outfit on from like a club event or whatever. And several people had passed her, including the bus. And eventually the coach picked her up. What we're really finding out, she was waiting for the coach because she thought she could trust him. She thought he was like legitimate. And he was really like a crazy person. And he kept her in captivity for a long time. And then eventually like this neighborhood guy who was like a veteran named Ronnie is the one that actually saved her. Ronnie was later killed in like other episodes, a season or two later. But essentially, he was the one that saved her. And so what Nuck brings up to her is that, he's sorry he didn't want her to feel like he was disrespecting her. But he reminds her that he is always still in guilt because he feel like he could have saved her. And so what we kind of find out, and I guess we're supposed to be reminded of, is that when Keisha was waiting at that bus stop for someone to come pick her up, because that's what the issue was. Like I think she was waiting for the coach to come get her. The bus passed, other people passed. It was real late at night. She was uncomfortable. Well, apparently Nuck passed her as well. And he was going to pick her up, I guess, or try to save her or whatever. Or I forgot how they ended up seeing each other. But he always felt like he could have intervened and he didn't. And he feels super guilty for that. He feels like she wouldn't even went through what she went through had he intervened. I don't remember a lot about it, but it clearly sits with him in a guilty way. And he feels like he owes her. She tells him she doesn't hold it against him. They have a really emotional moment, which we didn't anticipate. Emmett walks up. She tells Emmett it's not a big deal. Anyway, Nuck goes outside on the porch with Rob so he can actually smoke. And Rob is smoking with him, but he's also grilling him from information because, as you know, in the last episode, Rob's mother is going to loan him and Tiff some money for their weed business, but she wants Rob to find out who killed her brother, his uncle Q. So Rob and Nuck are really, really cool. And he starts to drill him about like, hey, what happened to my uncle that night? Do you know more information? Nuck is basically lying, saying he doesn't know. But Rob knows Nuck knows something and that maybe the person that killed Q is closer to home than he thinks. Now, y'all know if it's one thing Black people going to do when we get together, we going to dance, especially at a party. And the DJ is killing it. And all of a sudden, he throwing wobble, baby, wobble, baby, wobble, baby, wobble, what? Wobble, baby, wobble, wobble. So the wobble is playing. They clear the floor. Everybody's in the middle of the floor. And I mean, they really are getting it in. We have a good 2-3 minutes of everybody getting together in the party to get their groove on and just have a good time. Everybody's wobbling. We see it from mad angles. Everybody's getting their move on. It's very, very cool. And Duda is sort of walking out the place too. So that always helps that his aura is leaving the situation. But kind of in the middle of all the fun, Kevin's sitting off to the side, Emmett's sitting off to the side, and Emmett walks up to Kevin. And Emmett kind of really became like a big brother kind of figure to Kevin over the last couple of years. And he's sort of talking with him and he notices that like as Kevin is sitting on the steps, he's like smiling from ear to ear. He's got this really like he's staring like just in a loving capacity, like, and he sort of looks out and Emmett realizes that Kevin is looking at Maisha. And they're just talking about like life and relationships. And he's like, hey, are you feeling Maisha? And he's like, yeah. He's like, he really is feeling her. And Emmett's like, so y'all gonna try again? Y'all gonna try the relationship thing again? He said, I'm not really sure where we are or what we're doing. I just know I really like this girl, like more than serious. And it was a really cute moment because in the moment we realized that Kevin is just, he's like, I'm just trying to be in her space kind of energy. Like it's not just infatuation. He genuinely cares for and likes Maisha, and he wants whatever they're trying to pursue to work. And Emmett also touches on the fact that he really is in love with Keisha as well. And you realize the maturity of these two young men in their relationship and their pursuit of these young women, that they're genuinely feeling them. They want to be with them and they want to be happy with them. And they're just trying to figure out how they can make the best choices possible to connect and make sure that they're clear about their intentions. It was a really, really sweet moment. A quick rundown of other things are going on in the party while everything is happening. The men sit down, they start having conversations about the relationships they're in and the women and good and bad advice that the Hotep is giving to the men. And the men are also giving their own advice about how the Hotep needs to find love and not be out there so stretched amongst different women. You know, we're finding that Keisha is connecting with Fatima, Trig's girl, and they're having a conversation about the interior design. Fatima's complimenting Keisha on the house and how beautiful it looks. And Keisha's saying thanks and like, hey, maybe sometime we can hang out and, you know, go shopping together. And Fatima says that's her thing. And we really see this moment that's really beautiful for Trig, where he realizes that people are accepting Fatima. As we know, Fatima's a trans woman and she has a lot of fear around, you know, being out amongst different people sometimes and the friends and not feeling accepted outside of her own circle in their bubble. So in that moment, you realize that she's making friends with people that he loves and cares about, and that they're accepting her and embracing her. He really, really is happy about that situation. We're seeing Jada again hound somebody else down to try to figure out if they're single. It's actually Emmett's friend from high school that he didn't really reconnect with, and she's asking him questions about whether or not he's single. We have the conversation that goes on between Keisha and Nuck, as I stated earlier. And then we have a really interesting dynamic that goes down. So earlier in the episode, Keisha catches Emmett and Tiff's son curse at their other sibling. And she is not happy with that. And so she mentions it to Emmett. She says that he should say something to Keisha, to Tiff about it. He says he will, but he doesn't really find it to be a big deal because he feels like the kid is so young and that's something that they all did. But Keisha's not really feeling that. And so she asks him to handle it and he says that he will. So they're back in the kitchen now and Keisha's in the kitchen, Emmett's in the kitchen, Rob is in the kitchen, and Tiff is in the kitchen. And, you know, Emmett's kind of joking with Tiff and they're having a conversation and he lightly brings up, hey, I think the son's name is DJ. DJ cursed today at one of the kids. And she's like, oh, like it was kind of inappropriate. They kind of all laugh. And when I say all, I really just mean Rob, Tiff, and Emmett. They got to kind of watch his language or curb it. And Tiff is saying, kids curse. Keisha does not find this amusing at all. And she's like, well, kids curse, it happens. It's not something that happens commonly. He does listen to music in the car with us. He probably heard it in a rap song or something. Now, this son is really, really young. He's in, I think, elementary school or first grade. He's in elementary school. So it's one of those things where, like, he's kind of too young to be doing that. Even though, kids pick up cuss words because they hear things. That's sort of how Tiff defines it. Like, he just heard something in passing. It's something happens. We all did it. And Keisha doesn't find it amusing, and she chimes in. Now, this was really an interesting perspective in terms of how you deal with co-parenting, because now everybody's intermingling in the situation. Emmett has 3 kids, Keisha has 1, and Keisha is going to be a parent to these children when they're at the house with Emmett and her. And Tiff and Rob at their home, they watch her son. And the dynamics of trying to figure out how you're going to raise your kid when you have multiple parents and multiple people taking care of them is very, very unique, especially because Keisha doesn't want to overstep her boundaries. That's what she was telling Emmett and why she asked him to take care of it initially. And then at the same time, she doesn't want to have trauma with Tiff because they already just got over the fact that Tiff and I'm sorry, that Emmett and Keisha were even dating each other. So there's a lot of stuff at play. But Keisha still, despite her saying earlier she wanted Emmett to handle it, she gets involved and she basically says, like, look, I don't actually think this is funny. I think it's inappropriate that he's cursing at this age. You all ride with music with him in the car that has curses in it. Maybe you can, not use that version or play different music. And, Tiff gets upset. It's like, look, don't tell me how to raise my son. Like, I don't come into your household with this. Y'all do what y'all want in your household. We'll do what we want in ours. So it doesn't end on a solid note, and it just shows that there's going to possibly be a tiff even further down the line with how things are parenting. On the outside of things, as we stated earlier, Darnell found the gun that Douda gave to Emmett, and he is hot. He takes the gun. He sees Douda walking out the house. He walks up to Douda with the gun in his waist. He's like, look, I know what you gave my son. He doesn't want it. We don't want it. Take this gun back. Douda laughs and starts to explain, like, look, he's a grown man and he needs to learn how to protect his family and, what to do as a boss. Like, he can't walk around not protecting his family, not protecting himself. And Darnell's like, look, I don't like you. I don't care for you. And if something happened to my son, I'm coming for you. And I think in that moment, we're also realizing that this is really setting us up every time that we see a situation with Douda where he's supposed to have multiple enemies. And I really think they're setting us up for a season where Douda dies. And I think they're setting us up for that. And they're giving us different perspectives of people that are enemies of him or are going to have a problem with him. And that way we won't know who exactly the person is. Maybe we'll have to wait till next season to see who that person is that actually killed him. But I think they're setting us up for Douda's death. So with all the stuff going on at the house, Lene asks Bakari to step outside and they have a conversation. And it's in that conversation that she starts to echo some of the concerns that Jamal has had and even what Maisha and Kevin were sort of talking about with her in regards to Bakari's station in life, which is currently working as a lookout for Douda. She's not feeling the situation because she thinks it could end up hurting her in her future and also just their relationship. She doesn't want to be the girl that's with the gangster dude or the street dude. She doesn't want to end up a casualty of the situation. And she's ultimately telling him, like, where are we headed with this situation? They're, of course, having this conversation outside of Keisha and Emmett's house. She's telling him she just doesn't want her life like that. And she doesn't see what he's, trying to do. They sort of have this back and forth conversation. He's telling her he doesn't want everything to be that way. He's just only working for Douda because he is saving up and he wants to do other things. And she's like, well, you don't know where this is going to lead you. They kind of just have this very heated argument and it sort of ends. But towards the end of the episode, he keeps texting her, telling her he wants to talk to her. He tells her to meet him outside of her house when she's back at home after the housewarming, and he basically she sneaks out downstairs to open the door for him, and he has bought her, like, I believe, like hot Cheetos or something, and he bought her like candy, and he basically is telling her, like, look, I care about you, I don't want us to end. She's like, look, I don't want to be the gangster's girlfriend, I don't want to be the street dude's girlfriend, I don't want to be I'm not doing time for you, none of that. And he's like, I don't want you to do time for me, I'm never going to put you in that position. And she's like, you don't know what's going to happen. And he's like, I'm just a lookout for him. And she repeats what her brother said, which is that you don't know how long that's going to last. He's going to ask you to do something for him. He's going to ask you to hold a gun, or he's going to ask you to kill somebody. And he's like, I will make that decision, or kind of he's alluding to the fact that he's not going to try to make the decision. He's only doing this to save money. And he can't go working no regular job because a regular job is just not going to pay enough of what Douda is paying for him to be able to save money faster. And we have to remember that Bakari doesn't really have a family to fall back on. He does now a little bit because Papa's family has embraced him, but he knows more of his life having to fend for himself than he does on relying on people and the networks and the families that these other folks have. Even Lene has fallen into having a family watch out for her. So this is an interesting dynamic because you understand what everybody is saying about Bakari working for Douda and how this could lead him going to jail. Shad has told them this. Other folks have told him this. But I also think that he is just afraid that if he doesn't do this, that he won't save up enough fast enough, because he's worried if he works like a part-time job at like a Smokies or a McDonald's or something, he's just not going to make the kind of money he needs to move out of Papa's family's house because he's staying on their couch. and that he needs to take care of him because nobody's going to have his back. Because he's been homeless before. He was homeless when they met, and he was having to like do bad things to like get money for himself. So he just really doesn't want to ever be in that spot again. This is going to be an interesting dynamic to see because we don't know if they're going to stay together. We don't know if he's going to end up putting Lene in a situation where she's going to get harmed. But we do know right now that they're young and trying to figure it out and in high school, and they really just like each other. They hug it out. She gives him a kiss and she takes her Cheetos. So the housewarming is officially over. Keisha and Emmett are closing down the house for the night. They're getting in the bed, and Keisha's asking Emmett, like, hey, what did Dude I get you? And he said, oh, it was nothing. It was some cigars. He got them for us or whatever. He's, of course, lying to her. And a big part of this season, especially the beginning part of this season, even with us only being in episode 3, is that Keisha has asked Emmett to be transparent with her and to be clear and not lie to her. Emmett lies and says, hey, it's just a cigar, some cigars he got me to celebrate the house. And she's like, he got them for us. And he's like, yeah, he kind of got them for us. And he's like, he's lying because he knows he put the gun in the top drawer. He did not know Darnell went in the room and got the gun out. And so he digs into the top drawer when Keisha's kind of turned around, and he realizes the gun is missing. And he's really, really afraid because he does not know what happened to the gun. And so Keisha's like, oh, okay. He asked her what her and Nuck talked about, and she said nothing serious. And of course, her and Nuck's moment was actually emotional because I don't think anybody knew that Nuck saw her that night. And so she, I think, doesn't want anybody to know because they wouldn't deal with him anymore because he could have helped save her. And at the same time, she doesn't want it, I think, to be uncomfortable for him because when he came over to ask her and Nuck what they were talking about, she said nothing. And Nuck said nothing. So, they're kind of both keeping a secret from each other, but Emmett's is far bigger. Emmett is extremely worried. We see his face be concerned because he doesn't now know where the gun is that Duda gave him. He was touching that gun. He was sort of, playing with it in the mirror, being a tough guy for a minute after Duda gave it to him, and now it's missing. So that's the hook for the next episode. And as we see the upcoming episodes, this, I think, again, is just really leading up to whether or not of who killed Duda. It's very much giving The Simpsons and Who Killed Mr. Burns, where they're giving us all these different scenarios of who could possibly be the killer. That's my personal opinion. Because we have Rob looking for who killed Q, and we know that Duda killed Q. We don't know if Tracy's going to end up having some beef with him. It looks like they're trying to get Shad into some mess in the next episode. We got Darnell not feeling him because of Emmett. We got Emmett maybe having to possibly defend himself. Dude, I got enemies everywhere. So it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds, and also how the dynamic of Keisha and Emmett moving in together and moving up in the world changes everybody's lives. As always, y'all, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below, and I'll see you in the next one.